I-38F blew up my perfect life for a patient 32M. It ended in a way I never could have imagined. If you had looked at my life 10 months ago, you would have seen a picture of perfect, boring success. A nice house, a loving daughter, a 10-year marriage. On paper, I had it all. And maybe that's the most dangerous kind of unhappiness, the kind you don't even feel you have the right to. My world only truly made sense inside the walls of City General Hospital. My kingdom was a small, sterile room smelling of antiseptic and floor wax, filled with railings, exercise balls, and charts. Here, I wasn't just Amy. I was Dr. Hayes. I had a purpose that was clear and measurable. I helped broken people heal. I remember that last normal afternoon so clearly. I was with Margaret, an 80-year-old woman with a will of iron and a hip that had been shattered on an icy sidewalk. Her hand, fragile and spotted with age, trembled in mine. "I can't, doctor," she whispered, her breath ragged. "Yes, you can, Margaret," I said softly, my voice calm and steady, the voice I reserve for my patients, never for myself. "Your body remembers how. We just have to remind it. One more step. For me." She squeezed my hand, her knuckles white. She took the step. A single, shaky, monumental step. Her daughter, watching from the corner, let out a choked sob. Later, she cornered me by the elevators, her eyes shining with tears. "You gave me my mother back," she said. In that moment, I felt a warmth spread through my chest. It was a feeling of competence, of being needed, of making a real difference. I held on to that feeling as I walked to my car. It was a precious, finite resource. I knew it would evaporate the second I pulled into my own driveway. And it did. The silence of our house was a physical presence. It wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of things left unsaid for years. My husband, David, was already at the table when I came in, nursing a beer and staring at the cable news ticker on the large flat-screen TV. He grunted a hello in my general direction. "Hi," I said, forcing a cheerful tone as I kissed Lily's head. "Sorry I'm late. It was a busy day." Dinner was a practiced, silent routine. The clinking of forks against plates was the only soundtrack. I decided to try, like I sometimes did, to build a bridge across the vast, empty space between us. "I had a real breakthrough with a patient today," I began. "Margaret, the one I told you about with the hip replacement? She walked 5 whole steps. Her daughter cried. It was—" "Uh-huh," David said, his eyes glued to a segment about market fluctuations. "Hey, did you remember to call the landscaper? The front yard looks like a jungle." And just like that, the bridge collapsed before the first plank was even laid. My story, my small victory, my entire professional world, it was irrelevant. It was just noise interfering with the logistics of our lives. "Yes, David," I said, my voice flat. "I handled it." He nodded, satisfied. He wasn't being malicious. It was worse than that. I had simply become a part of the household machinery. I was the chief operating officer of our domestic life. I managed the child, the home, the social calendar. He was the CEO, the one who funded the operation. We weren't partners anymore. We were a 2-person corporation that had forgotten its original mission. Later that night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with her wide, serious eyes. "Mommy, are you sad?" I pasted on a smile. "Of course not, sweetie. Why do you ask?" "Your eyes look rainy," she said. I kissed her forehead, a lump forming in my throat. "Just tired, baby. Just very tired." But as I stood in the hallway listening to the muffled drone of the TV downstairs, I knew it wasn't just tiredness. It was a profound, aching hollowness. I was a ghost in the perfect house I was supposed to love, and I was terrified that this was all my life would ever be. The hollowness followed me to work the next day. It was a cold, heavy weight in my stomach. I went through the motions with my patients, using my professional, reassuring voice, but inside I felt like a fraud. I was just going through the motions of a life, not living one. And then his file landed on my desk. Ben Carter, 32, architect. Motorcycle versus SUV. The SUV won. The chart listed his injuries: a complex femur fracture, a dislocated shoulder, multiple contusions. It promised a long, difficult case. I sighed, picked up my clipboard, and walked toward his room. He was staring at the acoustic tile ceiling when I came in, but his head turned at the sound of my footsteps. And for the first time in what felt like a decade, I felt truly seen. His eyes weren't rainy like mine. They were a piercing, intelligent blue, and they were full of a life that I felt I had lost. Even pale and obviously in pain, he had an energy that filled the room. "Dr. Hayes?" he asked, a small, wry smile playing on his lips. "I was told you were the miracle worker." I felt an involuntary smile back. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. For today, I'll settle for making you curse my name a few times." His laugh was a low, pleasant sound. "As long as you're here while I'm doing it." That was the beginning. My job is touching people. It's a clinical, desensitized process. I know the human body as a machine of muscle, bone, and nerve endings. But with Ben, it was different. From the first session, when my hands were assessing the damage to his leg, I felt it. It wasn't just a connection between patient and therapist. It was a current. Our sessions became my sanctuary. We'd talk while I guided him through the painful, repetitive motions. He told me about buildings he wanted to design, places he'd traveled, the kind of life he was fighting to get back to. And unlike my husband, he asked me questions, not about bills or errands, but about me. What was my favorite book? Did I ever want to live somewhere else? What was the one dream I'd given up on? I found myself telling him things I hadn't thought about in years. That I'd wanted to be a painter once. That I dreamed of living in a small coastal town. These were confessions whispered in the sterile, antiseptic air of the therapy room. Secrets I had never even told my husband. The line I thought was so clear and bright began to blur into a soft, hazy gray. The professional distance closed with every shared story, every shared laugh. The physical contact became charged. My hands on his shoulder, his grip on my arm for support. It all started to mean something more. The breaking point came after a particularly brutal session. He had finally managed to put weight on his leg, his face contorted in a mask of pain and determination. When it was over, he sank back onto the bed, breathing heavily. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He reached out and took my hand. It wasn't a handshake. He interlaced his fingers with mine, his thumbs stroking my knuckles. My breath caught in my throat. I should have pulled away. I should have said, "You're welcome, Mr. Carter," and walked out. But I couldn't. His touch felt like a lifeline. I felt a warmth spread from my hand through my entire body, chasing away a chill I didn't even realize I had. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment, the feeling of his hand in mine. The next day, the last day before his discharge, the tension was unbearable. We barely spoke during his final session. The air was thick with everything we weren't saying. I was doing my paperwork late that evening, trying to bury myself in work, when I saw him. He was dressed in street clothes, leaning on his crutches just down the hall from my office, waiting. "You forgot to make me curse your name today," he said, his blue eyes searching mine. "I guess I went easy on you," I replied, my heart hammering against my ribs. "No, you didn't," he said, taking a slow, deliberate step closer. "You saved me, Amy." He used my name, not Dr. Hayes. Amy. It was the only push I needed. He leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was fire and desperation and months of unspoken words. It was a confession from us both. I kissed him back, my hands tangling in his hair, all thoughts of my husband, my daughter, my life, burning away in the heat of the moment. I unlocked my office door and pulled him inside. In the dark, with the city lights twinkling through the window, I threw away 10 years of marriage. It wasn't about love, not then. It was a selfish, reckless, desperate act. It was me, screaming into the silent void of my life. And for the first time in forever, something screamed back. When it was over, I leaned against the cold wall of my office, the professional nameplate on my door mocking me. Amelia Hayes, DPT. I had just pulled the pin on a grenade and dropped it right in the center of my perfect, hollow life. All I could do now was wait for the explosion. The grenade didn't explode right away. For a few days, there was just a deafening, ringing silence in my head. I went to work, smiled at my colleagues, came home, kissed my husband, and read my daughter a bedtime story. I played the part, all while the ghost of what I'd done in my office followed me down every hallway. I tried to convince myself it was a one-time, insane mistake, a fever that had broken. I almost believed it. Then, 4 days after his discharge, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know things are complicated. I know you have a family, but I can't pretend last week didn't happen. It did, and it meant something to me. Can I please see you again? Just for coffee. Somewhere far from the hospital. Ben. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The choice. I could ignore it, delete the number, and spend the rest of my life wondering, what if, while I slowly suffocated in my quiet house. Or I could reply. I stared at the screen for a full hour, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed back a single word. When. That coffee was the second time I threw my life away. But this time, I did it in broad daylight. We met at a small, anonymous cafe on the other side of town. Seeing him in normal clothes, walking on his own with just a slight limp, felt both strange and incredibly right. The conversation was effortless. We talked for 2 hours, and he never once looked at his phone. He looked at me. He listened. He laughed at my stupid jokes. It felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater for years. Coffee turned into lunch the following week. Lunch turned into entire afternoons. And so began my double life. My late nights at the hospital and weekend training seminars became more frequent. I bought a second, cheap pay-as-you-go phone, my Ben phone, that I kept hidden in the bottom of my gym bag. I became a meticulous, expert liar. The amount of energy it took to maintain the facade was exhausting, but the moments with Ben felt like plugging myself into a charger. With him, I wasn't Dr. Hayes, or Mommy, or David's wife. I was just Amy. I felt witty and beautiful and reckless, and for the first time in so long, I felt happy. I was falling in love, but the happiness was always tinged with poison. The guilt was a constant, metallic taste in the back of my throat. Every lie I told David felt like a small stone I was swallowing. Every time I came home, smelling of Ben's cologne, I'd jump straight into the shower, scrubbing my skin as if I could wash away the deceit. The worst part, the part that still twists my stomach into knots, was Lily. Children see everything. She'd look at me with those big, trusting eyes after I'd just come from Ben's arms and say, "You seem happy today, Mommy." One afternoon, she drew a picture of our family. In it, David was watching TV, she was playing with a doll, and I was standing off to the side, holding a phone to my ear with a giant, stretched-out smile. When I asked her about it, she said, "That's your secret smile, Mommy. The one you use when you think no one is looking." I ran to the bathroom and threw up. I was living 2 lives, held together by a fragile web of lies. David became more suspicious. He'd ask pointed questions about my seminars. He'd check the mileage on my car. The house, which was once just quietly empty, was now filled with a tense, brittle silence. The air was electric with what we both weren't saying. I knew I was playing with fire, juggling sticks of dynamite. I thought I was in control, that I could keep it all separate, manage the risk. That was my greatest, most arrogant delusion. I didn't realize that the walls weren't just cracking. They were about to be blown to dust. I thought I was in control. It's almost funny in a dark, twisted way how you can believe your own lies right up until the moment reality takes a sledgehammer to them. For me, that moment came on an ordinary Tuesday night. I was helping Lily with her homework at the kitchen table. David was upstairs. I was tired, distracted, and I made a mistake. A stupid, careless mistake. I'd left my coat slung over a dining chair, and inside the pocket was the Ben phone. I'd forgotten to turn it off. It vibrated. It was a soft, almost imperceptible buzz against the wood of the chair. But in the tense silence of our house, it sounded like a gunshot. David appeared at the bottom of the stairs. "What was that?" he asked. His eyes weren't on me. They were on my coat. My blood ran cold. "Nothing," I said, my voice coming out an octave too high. "Just my phone." "Your phone is on the counter," he said, his voice flat as he pointed to my real phone. He walked slowly toward the chair, a predator sensing weakness. There was another buzz. From your coat. It's nothing, David. Probably just static. But it was too late. He reached into the pocket and pulled out the cheap black burner phone. He held it up between his thumb and forefinger like it was a dead rat. For a long moment, he just stared at it, then at me. The silence was absolute. I didn't know you had a second phone, Amy, he said, and the way he said my name sent a spike of pure ice through my veins. He unlocked it. There was no password. Another stupid mistake. And his face, illuminated by the screen, was a blank, unreadable mask. I watched his eyes move back and forth as he scrolled through months of my secret life. Months of messages. I miss you. I can't wait to see you. Last night was amazing. When he finally looked up, the man I knew was gone. His eyes were dark, hollow pits of something I had never seen before. Who, he said, his voice a terrifying, quiet rasp, is Ben? My throat closed up. My mind raced, searching for a lie, any lie, but there was no escape. The evidence was in his hand. So I just shook my head, tears blurring my vision, and a single, choked sob escaped my lips. That was all the confession he needed. The quiet man disappeared. With a guttural roar, he hurled the phone against the wall, where it exploded into a spray of plastic and glass. Lily screamed. Go to your room, Lily. I yelled, my voice cracking with a terror I had never known. Now, she ran, sobbing. The moment her door slammed shut, David turned to me. The first slap was so loud it didn't feel real. My head snapped to the side, my ear ringing, the sharp, coppery taste of blood filling my mouth. I stared at him, my mind unable to process what was happening. This was David, my husband, the father of my child. Whore, he spat. His face twisted into an ugly snarl. You brought a stranger into my family, into my life. He grabbed me by my arms, his fingers digging into my flesh like talons, and shoved me back against the wall. Then it wasn't just slaps. It was his fist. In my stomach, my side. I crumpled to the floor, trying to show my head as he stood over me, his voice a torrent of vile, hateful words. He wasn't seeing me anymore. He was just seeing the betrayal, and he was trying to beat it out of existence. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably less than a minute. As suddenly as it began, it stopped. He stood over me, breathing heavily, his chest heaving. I scrambled away, crab-walking backward until I hit the bathroom door, fumbling behind me for the lock and slamming it shut. He threw himself against the door, the wood groaning under the force of his weight. You think this is over, he bellowed, his voice muffled but still full of that terrifying rage. This is nothing. I'm going to find him. You hear me, Amy? I'm going to find your little boyfriend, and I'm going to kill him with my bare hands. I heard his heavy footsteps stomp toward the front door, then the sound of it slamming shut with enough force to rattle the pictures on the wall. Then, silence again. I lay on the cold bathroom tiles, every part of my body screaming in pain, my own sobs echoing in the small space. The affair was over. That part of my life was gone. But in its place was a new, much more immediate horror. He meant it. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that he would do exactly what he said. My hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my real phone. I found Ben's number. It rang once before he picked up. Amy, what's wrong? He knows. I gasped, the words tumbling out between sobs. David knows everything. You have to go. You have to run. Now. Don't ask questions. Just get out of your apartment and go somewhere he can't find you. What? Amy, slow down. He's going to kill you, Ben. I shrieked, my voice raw. I'm not exaggerating. He's coming for you. Please, just promise me you'll run. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then a whispered, Okay, I will. The line went dead, and I was left alone, huddled on the cold tile of the bathroom floor, in the ruins of the life I had so carelessly set on fire. It's been 6 months since my life exploded. The word divorce is so clean, so clinical. It doesn't capture the sheer, ragged mess of it all. It doesn't describe the process of sorting through 10 years of shared life, separating books and photos and furniture, trying to explain to your 9-year-old daughter why daddy doesn't live with us anymore, why we have to leave her home and move into this small, two-bedroom apartment that always smells faintly of the previous tenant's cat. The bruises on my face faded in a few weeks. I wish I could say the same for the ones on the inside. I see a therapist now. She talks about trauma and recovery. I nod and say the right things, but mostly I just feel numb. I never heard from Ben again. Not a text, not an email, not a whisper. He did exactly what I begged him to do that night. He disappeared. He vanished from my life as quickly as he entered it. Sometimes, in the quiet hours after Lily is asleep, I wonder if I ever really knew him at all, or if he was just a mirror, a fantasy I invented to show me everything I was missing. I don't feel love for him anymore. I don't feel much of anything except a dull, aching responsibility. I pulled him into my storm, and he was lucky enough to escape it. I hope he's safe. I pray for it. David and I only communicate through our lawyers. His name on an email is enough to make my stomach clench. He's not fighting me for custody of Lily. I think, on some level, he can barely stand to look at her because she looks so much like me. He just wants to hurt me financially, to make this process as painful as possible. But he made sure to send one final personal message. He told my lawyer, a woman with kind eyes who has seen it all, make sure she understands. Some debts don't get settled in a courtroom. The threat wasn't for me. It was for Ben. And I know David. He's a man who sees things in black and white, a man of pride and terrifying resolve. He is a man who always pays his debts. And so this is my life now. A tiny apartment, a daughter who has nightmares, and a constant low-grade fear that one day I'll see a news headline or get a phone call about an unidentified man found beaten in an alleyway in some faraway city. The not knowing is a special kind of torture. I'm writing this now from a bench in a park. Lily is on the swings, her laughter carrying on the afternoon breeze. It's the only sound in the world that brings me any real joy. I watch her pump her little legs, flying higher and higher, so full of life, so innocent. And my heart just breaks. I did this to her. I cheated my daughter out of her home, her family, her simple, happy childhood. That is a sin I will carry with me every day for the rest of my life. I made a terrible, selfish mistake that destroyed everything I had built. There is no justifying it. But sometimes in the dead of night, when the fear for Ben's safety is a physical weight on my chest, a single, terrifying thought keeps me awake. If I hadn't done it, I would still be in that perfect house, sleeping next to a monster, and I would never even have known he was one. I escaped a prison I didn't even know I was in. But the price of that freedom was setting my entire world on fire. And now, I have to be the one to live in the ashes.